Hello and welcome to Petrotech 2007, a wrap-up special report on the mother of all oil and gas shows in the country. In New Delhi, I am Vivian Fernandez. Petrotech is a once-in-2-year event that goes back 12 years, the latest one being the 7th in a series. At one time, India was thought to be a country under-endowed in oil and gas. But over the past 8 years, that perception has changed. Significant quantities of oil have been discovered in Rajasthan and gas in the Krishna-Godavari basin of the east coast, the latest one as if timed for the conference by the organizer ONGC itself.
We have yet to reach the target depth. This is the second deepest well we are drilling in India, about 7,000 meters. We have reached about 6,600 meters. So in the intermittent zones, whatever the tests have been done, MDT testing has been done in the presence of DGH representatives as required under the production sharing agreements. We have encountered some gas in very good quantities.
The changing perception of India as an economy of consequence and the possibility that it might contain significant quantities of oil and gas drew a large number of delegates. The conference was a kind of mini-ministerial with oil ministers from Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Nigeria, Venezuela, Romania, Yemen and Sri Lanka attending. There was also representation from the national oil companies like Petrobras of Brazil. The presence of the Petroleum Minister of Qatar, a major gas producer, would have lent weight to an otherwise heavy-duty event.
It's the most attended show. I mean, I'm told how many, 4,000 delegates are there. You can see there was no space, so we have provided CCTV, the closed-circuit televisions in the rooms. They are seeing them.
A rescheduled ASEAN summit in the Philippines came in the way of the Prime Minister inaugurating the conference. External Affairs Minister Pranab Mukherjee did the honors. An apt choice because oil equity or the acquisition of stakes in oil fields abroad has become a key aspect of India's strategy for energy security. ONGC, for instance, has a footprint across 25 countries. Oil India is following closely and Reliance Industries is acquiring acreages abroad.
Energy security must remain a prime objective of our policies and all-round efforts. We are moving towards this through intensification of indigenous exploration, bringing in more equity oil from overseas, improving the recovery by leveraging advances in technologies and professional management and tapping emerging areas like coal gasification.
The Petroleum Secretary made the interesting observation that carbohydrates and hydrocarbons are but carbon and hydrogen molecules differently arranged, the one sustaining the individual, the other powering a national collective. This is the first year of the 11th five-year plan that seeks to achieve 9% GDP growth in the closing years. To meet the growing demand for oil and gas, India has decided to double the rate of exploration in each of the next 5 years to cover 60% of territory by 2012, up from 33% now. Preparations for the next round of auctions of exploration licenses are just down the corner.
We will start our first round of consultation with the present players as well as the prospective players. It's a wide-ranging consultation in which we'll do the draft terms also, which we are proposing for the next round. And we will definitely further intensify our consultations with the players before printing the terms for the 7th round. I think it has been a continuous learning curve for us, and round after round the terms have been improved considerably and they have become more and more transparent. And transparency-wise, I do not think there is any scope for us to improve it further. But in terms of the terms, yes, definitely I think we could take a look at it. We are going to have consultations. Should be by the middle of February.
Among the many suggestions received at the many technical and by invitation only sessions was the one to integrate methane and oil exploration licenses following the discovery of methane in oil blocks in the Gujarat-Rajasthan region. These are separately awarded now, and there have been 3 rounds of auctions of licenses for extraction of methane from coal beds.
From one company which had an oil block for exploration, and they said we are discovering some methane in the oil field, can we extract that also? In fact, we examined it and think we are taking a very favorable view of that. It makes sense. to ensure optimal utilization of your resources there. Definitely yes. These are worth considering and worth responding to in a favorable way.
High oil and gas prices have lent urgency to the discovery of new reserves. These are likely to be in difficult terrains or at great depths. To minimize cost and maximize the probability of making a find, the emphasis is now more on diagnostics rather than drilling.
We just commissioned a study, the study has come out, and we see potential over the next 4 or 5 years of India, subject to our taking necessary measures now, being able to meet not only our domestic requirements, but also being able to fill in the manpower requirement of Middle East and South Asia.
But wells will still have to be drilled. Because of the scramble for new discoveries and the heightened exploration activity, India will have to reckon with a shortage of people and equipment.
We find that there is a shortage of deep water rigs, and India is now going more and more deep water. All the biggest finds of ONGC, Cairn and Reliance are all in deep water, ultra deep water now. We are very short of deep water rigs now, and deep water rigs are under construction, but take a long time to get constructed, take more than a year. But I think in 2 or 3 years' time, the position will improve now. In the meantime, we have tough position now. We are also short of shallow water rigs, but position are not so bad as deep water. And we also don't get land rigs on time. So we have a lot of traditional suppliers and land rigs in India. They're all busy. 2 or 3 new Indian companies are coming into land rigs. The position will improve. They're bringing in about 12 more rigs now into India. But still we have some position.
That was Avinash Chandra, the former Director General of Hydrocarbons, on the equipment front. They're moving into a break, but coming up on the other side, oil ministers from abroad make a pitch for Indian investments and Saudi Arabia expounds its attitude to crude prices. You're watching Petrotech 2007. Welcome back to Petrotech 2007. Ali Al-Naimi, the Saudi oil minister, was the rock star of the event, and his movement and statements were closely tracked by the media. Saudi Arabia is the world's largest producer and exporter of oil, with a quarter of the world's proven oil reserves. The sliding global crude prices have not been arrested despite a 1.2 million barrel daily production cut by OPEC, the oil cartel, from November, and the possibility of a further 500,000 barrel daily production cut from February. Aware of his ability to move markets, Ali Al-Naimi was guarded but played along on occasion, as well as disclosed Saudi Arabia's spare capacity for February.
February 1, 3 million. 3 million, yeah. Okay. Go, run, tell them, run, go.
Propounding the Saudi attitude to oil prices, Ali Al-Naimi said Saudi Arabia was interested more in stable than high prices. He said prices should balance the interests of both producers and consumers, a point endorsed by the Nigerian oil minister.
Development costs remain very high, very high. They are not coming down, and there needs to be enough incentive for new capacity to be put in place. So what we are looking at is stability of markets at a level that is supportive of future investment.
According to Ali Al-Naimi, despite alternatives, the energy mix in 2030 will remain pretty much the same as now, with fossil fuels dominating. Which is why Saudi Arabia is investing $80 billion, either itself or through joint ventures, to increase daily crude production capacity from 9.6 million barrels to 12 million barrels over the next 3 years, and double refining capacity to 6 million barrels over the next 5 years, with 1.5 to 2 million barrels of spare capacity.
The price rise in the last 2 years has been driven in large part by the combination of insufficient investment and rising energy demand over a 15-year period from the mid-1980s through the 1990s. The rise has been a wake-up call for the industry and for producers and consumers alike, who are now beginning to address the deliverability problem head-on. For example, India is planning a major expansion of its capacity to export refined products to world markets, while Saudi Arabia is doing all that it can to provide sufficient supplies of crude oil and petroleum products to meet the world's growing demand for energy. It has more to offer than just access to greater supplies. We also strive to be a source of stability in world markets.
High oil prices are cutting both ways. they are fueling an investment boom in the Gulf region. The Gulf cooperation countries are investing $1,400 billion. Saudi Arabia itself is investing $507 billion, of which $265 billion in oil, gas and petrochemicals. A team from Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, came calling during Petrotech to solicit Indian interest in engineering contracts from the kingdom.
We expect of Indian companies to come into Saudi Arabia to join in this economic boom, to take advantage of it, to partner with us, because to execute these massive projects we require tremendous resources.
With 25% of the world's proven oil reserves, Saudi Arabia has a special interest in looking beyond the short term, Ali Al-Naimi said. He outlined measures that the kingdom would take to keep global crude prices stable while assuring India of continued support.
Saudi Arabia has also expressed strong interest in various types of joint venture partnership with Indian companies, either in the kingdom or here in India. We invite Indian engineering and construction firms to bid on the many new projects available in the petroleum, natural gas, petrochemicals, and mineral sectors.
With 1.7 million expatriates, India has a special interest in Saudi Arabia. King Abdullah was the guest of honor at the Republic Day parade last year. The Delhi Declaration was signed and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh gave protocol to receive the king at the airport, an honor he has also given to President Bush.
Saudi Arabia is they are very close friends of our country. Last year, 26 January, the king was the chief guest and the king had assured the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister told him, this minister yesterday when we went to his house, that Saudi Arabia will see that India is never starved of oil. So it's like an insurance we have. Whatever contracts we have with them, like 16 million ton is IOC and total 25 million tons sometimes we will buy. They stand by that, they deliver in time, they never haggle about the price.
The Yemeni minister flaunted his India connection. He said of the 87 blocks, 35 are still unexplored. 2006, he said, was a stellar year for India-Yemeni collaboration in the oil and gas sector. GSPC and Reliance Industries, that is Indian companies, had participated in the previous rounds of auctions, and he called upon Indian companies to participate in strength in the coming round of auctions of oil exploration licenses.
Yemen is planning to issue the fourth international bid round in the second half of 2007, mostly intended for promoting offshore blocks. And during our visit within the last 3 days, we have already received 5 commitments from Indian oil companies to participate on the fourth international bidding offshore in Yemen.
The Sri Lankan minister said Lanka Indian Oil Corporation has done a fine job of petro-product marketing in the island nation. He wanted the joint venture to repeat the performance while exploring for oil and gas in the Gulf of Mannar.
The government of Sri Lanka is taking steps to hold an exploration licensing round for the Mannar Basin within the next couple of months, in addition to the block offered to the government of India. The high potential for significant oil and gas deposit in Sri Lanka is welcome news for any cross-border investors.
In keeping with President Hugo Chávez's philosophy of 21st century socialism, the Venezuelan vice minister spoke loftily of using oil to uplift the world's poor rather than aggrandize a few Western multinationals. He informed the audience of the country's move to acquire a controlling 51% stake in oil fields with private oil companies, and also to exercise control, state control that is, over natural gas and refining operations. PDVSA, which is Venezuela's national oil company, is looking to setting up a refinery in India with ONGC. It is also in advanced talks with ONGC Videsh to sell a 50% stake in the San Cristobal block that is said to have 1.3 trillion barrels of oil.
To international companies like ONGC and Indian Oil to participate with us in the development of our new reserves in the huge reservoirs that we have in La Faja Petrolífera del Orinoco, and also we are very happy that companies from India show us a tremendous interest to participate in our developments offshore.
Solicitation of Indian investment also came from Nigeria, which is setting up 4 2 lakh barrels a day refineries to almost double processing capacity to 70% of own crude production. Indian Oil Corporation has shown interest in a government refinery that is being put up for sale. And the Nigerian government has invited Indian companies to bid for licenses for 55 oil blocks that are being auctioned in February.
We have the resource base, but we don't have the capital cushion and we don't have the technology that India has. So we have a fair exchange. Those are the areas we'll be exploring in terms of installation of new refining capacity. The environment in Nigeria is receptive, cheap labor, and we have crude. We invite you to come and invest. LNG is a big thing. You need a lot of LNG here.
Time for a break, but coming up, what is ailing Indian petroleum retailing? You're watching a special program, Petrotech 2007. Welcome back to Petrotech 2007. Global oil prices have fallen and the average for the combination of crude that India is importing has fallen below the $50 mark, but the Petroleum Ministry seems to be using the occasion to enable oil companies to recoup the losses that they suffered when oil prices were higher. The Minister of State for the Prime Minister's office, 27Jan07, called for dual pricing of cooking gas, which currently bears a subsidy of 150 rupees a cylinder, and the Petroleum Secretary vowed to introduce smart cards to check diversion of cooking gas to the auto sector.
Putting in place a smart card system within the next 3-4 months. As a one-time cost, I think it will be incurred by the oil companies. We are going to put it together, but once that is done, definitely LPG loopholes will be plugged. We are very confident about that.
But oil companies seem lukewarm to technology fixes like smart cards, color coding of kerosene, and satellite tracking of delivery vehicles to check adulteration, which is essentially a play on the arbitrage between subsidized and freely priced fuels.
We have to just keep trying so that, LPG is a commodity that gets imported, and we have to make sure that we try everything to ensure that this is not diverted.
Industry Chamber FICCI said controls on pricing were deterring investments in the retailing sector. It wanted the government to let go.
FICCI welcomes the recommendation made by Dr. C. Rangaraj committee report on pricing and taxation of petroleum products. Its proposal to introduce trade parity pricing, lowering of customs duties, and shifting of excise duties from an ad valorem to a specific rate will go a long way in correcting anomalies that have existed in the fiscal regime in the downstream industry.
At current prices, oil companies are making a small profit on petrol but losing money on diesel, cooking gas and kerosene. The Petroleum Secretary said that compassionate subsidies for lifeline fuels like kerosene used in illumination in rural homes were inescapable, but these should be explicitly provided in the budget, not loaded onto oil companies. He was blunt when he called upon the political leadership to take the politics out of pricing.
You cannot talk about a 9-10% GDP growth with a sick energy sector here.
The highlight of the event was the buyer-seller meet that saw 40 companies participating and a lot of business being generated.
Difficult to gauge gauge values, particularly so soon after the event, because given the capital cost of some of the equipment that gets traded, the negotiating process can often be quite long. I think the purpose of people coming to Petrotech to exhibit is to meet people who they can begin the negotiating process with. We are in the business of providing business contacts. That's one of our slogans.
Two pioneers were also honored. Bisham Kumar Bakshi, one-time chairman of Indian Oil Corporation, got the Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution to the petroleum refining and retailing industry, and Colonel Satya Prakash Wahi, first chairman of ONGC, for taking oil production to its peak during his tenure between 1981 and 1989. That's the wrap on Petrotech 2007. From me and the team here, goodbye. Thanks for watching.